Dear colleagues, thank you so much for an opportunity to speak in front of you. We here, together with my colleague, Mr. Pavlenko, do represent the political parties Batьківщина and Udar, one of the two biggest oppositional fractions in Ukrainian parliament. And here we have an authority to speak in front of you on behalf of our political leaders, and I do here represent the position of united opposition as a whole. And the first and the major message that I have to tell you is that the association agreement has to be signed in November 2013. Here I can assume that there are a lot of things going on the carpet and a lot of negotiations taking place. However, the first positive sign that this country stood on the right step was the release of Mr. Lutsenko. When he understood that this person was set free, one of the leaders of opposition was set free, and by the way, that was one of the biggest achievements of so-called unofficial diplomacy, Cox and Kwasniewski mission, that was elaborated and invented by the EU to work properly together, not instead, but together with official diplomats working on the floor. That was a big victory for us. As not only our friend and colleague was released, but that was the first sign that administration of Yanukovych is willing to get this way done. I don't know what are the real reasons for Yanukovych to become the Euro integrator, so to say. But the hugest pressure from NGOs, the hugest pressure from media, and first of all, and the most important, the pressure of the society, as through the last 3 years, the support of the EU integration versus Russia integration in the society was highly increased. So my message is that Ukraine is really doing its path toward Europe. When I'm talking about the opposition, I did my best to follow through the whole initiatives of the opposition for the last 4 months after the so-called Füle list was presented to Ukraine after Mr. Füle's visit to Kiev. And I do assure you that opposition made it best not only to criticize the idea of the government when those laws that the government presented to us were not as good as we could have been. However, we went further and did our alternative program when it was needed, and starting with the electoral laws that are elaborated by our colleagues, Mr. Knyazevich, the reform of justice, the general prosecution, criminal court, high justice council, the status of judges, the laws on the protection of information, the effective implementation of criminal prosecution court, the fight with politically motivated decisions and the implementation of the decision of the Human Rights European Court, as well as other initiatives such as reform of the militia, the Constitutional Assembly, the fighting corruption. These are the initiatives that opposition is not only registering the laws of the bills, but trying hardly to negotiate with the Yanukovych part of the parliament to get those laws voted and signed. Some of them were already voted, and I have to assure you that the laws that are so-called the EU laws, which are demanded under the program, under the Füle list, are voted with not just by majority of votes, but by the constitutional majority of our parliament. That is a good sign. Probably one and the main reason why the parliament was de-blocked, because once it was blocked to get the personal voting, you know that our parliament was probably the last parliament in Europe voting not for the parliament, where the parliamentarians were voting not for themselves, but, you know, for the whole row. Yes, they managed. They had 10 seconds. We call them button pushers. But after a few weeks of blocking the parliament, we got a new parliament. We got a parliament where each parliamentarian represents his own or her own and represents the district where he or she was elected. That is something new. That is something new for 20 years in my country, and that also gives me a positive sign that changes can be done in this country. we do follow strictly all other changes that should be done and should be reformed, as our team works step by step, controlling what things are done by the ministries, other agencies, what is promised to you during the negotiations, and what should be fulfilled to get the thing done. We are all very much worried about the destiny of Yulia Tymoshenko, and we do have to press harder to get her freed. And the Yuri Lutsenko release gave us the hope that we will see her not in clinics or in prison, but we will see her freed this very year. And this is the reason that we have to put hardly and press. However, we have to think a lot over the situation of the small-time chance for Ukraine for this agreement to be signed. It's not only that we've heard from the European officials that it's either this year or after the presidential elections. I can go further. It's either this year or probably 10 or even 100 years after. Because chances for Ukraine are a rare thing. You probably know the history of my country. It's a very rare chance to get this thing signed, to get the right way chosen. Because it's either European Union or customs union. This country won't stay neutral for years. My colleague won't let me lie. This Tuesday, on the agenda of the Parliament, was the pipe question put on. I mean, whether we should get rid of our state-owned pipe and probably presented it to whom? Russia. You know, this country won't stay neutral for years. It's the chance where this year and after the elections, the opposition won by party list but failed by single-mandate districts. This year we still have a strong opposition. We still have free media and we still have NGOs trying and willing to press our country do all the list of demands and get into the EU. However, it cannot last for ages. You know, the situation can go worse. And frankly speaking, when we see our northern neighbor, Belarus, frankly speaking, for 10 years, there are not much political prisoners released free in Belarus. When we talk about the punishment, as it's also the question about how to get things go on, not only by positive, but also by negative motivation and stimulus, my message is we have to do that as personal sanctions. Do not punish the whole Ukrainian nation by setting up away from Europe, but please find forces and possibilities to find a way to set up the personal sanctions. Ukrainian judges, Ukrainian prosecutors are used to travel to Europe, shop in Milano, go to London where they teach their children, and they will be very afraid of losing their possibility to cross the western border. However, do not punish the Ukrainian people. As we have the statistics, the more people travel, the more people cross the western border of their country, the more they came Euro-orientated. So please take these arguments as well into deciding what should be done. And my last but not least message is, when signing the agreement in November 2013, that should be shown and seen not only the victory of Mr. Yanukovych, who probably do not deserve that, but a victory of the whole Ukrainian people. So not only the power, but opposition as well. So we have to find a form to show Ukrainian people that the same way as Slovakia once did, when the failed socialist government in the mid 90s failed each reform, but when the Slovakian people got the message that they can be the EU member, that they can be a part of EU, they made such a pressure upon their government and both opposition that they made it unite and go their way. And look where the Slovakia is. This is the way we want to follow as well. So please decide upon that and make your right choice. Thank you.